Welcome to BigTime's reporting webinar. My name is Brea Phillips and I'm with the customer success team over here at BigTime. Now today's goal on this webinar is to go ahead and get you familiar with BigTime's reporting functionality. The presentation will go for about 30 minutes or so, and then we'll use the remaining time to go ahead and address any questions. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to log into my BigTime environment. Of course, I'm going to be using Google Chrome. We always suggest for those folks that are system administrators, Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox are always going to be best. From our navigation bar, we're going to go ahead and select Reports. And from the drop-down, we're going to select Report Center. All right, so let's just discuss kind of what we're seeing here in our Report Center. First and foremost, we have our tiles across the top. Now, each of these tiles represent different drop-down menus that we can actually report on. What I do like to say is these act as umbrellas. So each umbrella will have different pick lists that are available to be able to report on. So what I like to do first is whenever I need to create a report, I like to go ahead and ask myself, like, what's the real meat and potatoes of what it is that I'm actually trying to report on? And then I'll choose a corresponding tile that will actually report or will be able to give me the items on the pick list that I will need to report on. Going down the next little section here, which shows timesheet summary by date range, this is the most popular report used by our clients within the BigTime system. As we click through the tiles, we'll always get different headers here. For invoicing, summary of unbilled time and expense is the most popular. For task list, we have task list by staff member. We're going to jump back to time tracking because that's where we're going to spend most of our time today. Now, if you need to have like maybe a staff list report or a project-based report, we do have the ability to get those as well, and you'll be clicking on the magnifying glass. And under the can't find what you need, click on create your own report. Now you can see that we're going to have different topics that are available for us to be able to report on. So again, these also are umbrella headers. So each individual umbrella will have different pick lists to be able to choose from while we're building our report. And so let's go ahead and discuss the rest of what we're seeing here. So on time tracking, we're going to have our most commonly used report, and below that, we're going to have the 5 canned reports that BigTime has made available for you. So we reached out to our client base and said, hey, which reports are you using the most? And these are the reports that we've pre-built into the system. Scrolling down, we're going to have our All Reports area. Now, the All Reports area is going to show you all of the reports that you've previously created in BigTime. Because once you create a report, you don't have to recreate the wheel. We're going to actually go ahead and save that report for you, and you'll be able to access it as a hyperlink from one of these drop-down areas. So I do like to go ahead and point out are all of these bolded topics here. So we have public reports, basic or generic reports, project, and so on. These are going to be different headers where we're going to be able to save your reports once we start creating additional customized reports. So we're going to come back up to the top of our screen. For today's purposes, it's not that I'm a lazy reporter, but I just don't believe in recreating the wheel if it's already partially built for me. So the way that I actually do that is I'm going to jump into one of our canned reports that's provided to us through BigTime. And I'm going to say for today's purposes that we need a time report that's going to show me whether or not hours are billable. I would like to see the bill rates that are applied to the timestamps. And I would like to know if those timestamps have yet been applied to an invoice. So because it is going to be pretty much based around timestamps, we'll jump into our time tracking. Again, get really familiar with the canned reports that BigTime does offer you, only because it will make it so you don't have to kind of jump into the create your own and then figure out what pick list is best for you. So if you get familiar with the canned reports, you'll be able to go ahead and at least start with a basic outline and then build what you need. For today's purposes, we're going to jump into a timesheet detail report. We'll do so by clicking on View. Now, every time we run a timesheet detail report, it's automatically going to download the information for the current month. You can see that because it will appear next to the Edit Report settings. So with that being said, let's talk about what it is that we're seeing here. This is going to be our basic timesheet detail report, listing project, staff member, category, date, input hours, whether or not they were no charge, and any notes that our employees would have left within their timesheets. At the top left, we have our little arrow that says Edit Report Settings. And of course, we have our date range for the report that's currently showing. We'll jump into Edit Report Settings. And you can see that we actually have our date range that's reflected next to that red arrow in our report settings here. So what I do like to go ahead and mention at this point is that most of you I had the pleasure of doing your onboard ones and onboard twos with. So we did talk about due dates within BigTime, or so a lot of the times, especially with task-based reports, if you're not using due dates within your BigTime environment, it will actually return a report with nothing attached to it. So if you ever have a report that you run and it shows 0 return, the best practice or first way to troubleshoot is to jump into this date range, go ahead and highlight it. We'll delete the dates out. And by doing this, what we're telling BigTime is, hey, BigTime, I want you to return everything that's actually in BigTime, so regardless of dates. So word of caution in regards to that is that when we do delete the date range, it's going to return a lot of information. So sometimes it may take BigTime a little while to be able to populate all of the information on that report. So you can see that when I went ahead and deleted our dates, our options changed here to the right of our Edit Report Settings. It's going to show all dates. So moving on to the right-hand side of this little top function, we have our magnifying glass. Magnifying glass works very similarly to the Control F function on your computer. So we'll be able to go ahead and say, hey, BigTime, I only want to see things for Stark Industries. It's going to tell me that I have 28 returns for Stark, and I can bounce through them by using the arrows. Okay. When we're done using our find function, we will want to close it out using the little X in the upper right-hand side. And but that is just a quick way to be able to find the information that you need in an existing report. The next little field over is going to be our filter field. Now, the filter within an existing report will act very similarly to Excel. So we'll be able to jump into the column that we want to filter on. And again, we can say, hey, you know, I really only want to see timestamps for Dunder Mifflin. So we can go ahead and click on apply. And then, of course, it's only going to show us what I filtered on. Now, when we filter, we do lose the ability to go ahead and actually put things in order based off of a sorting function that we have. So if I actually go ahead and clear the filter, turn the filter function off, you can see that I'll be able to use the headers to be able to break this out. So it'll give me a subtotal. So this will show Frank Burns, my employee, and we'll give a subtotal down at the bottom showing how many hours Frank has worked in the date range that's specified. Okay. The next little portion over is going to be export. Now on our export, we have PDF, Excel, or you can export to a Word doc. So it really does free you up to be able to either share reports with individuals or be able to add some extras and still be able to share it in a format that's going to be best for you. Okay. Now, the one thing about exporting is that if we do have a filter on, or if we do decide to use the sorting function in the report, when we export it, it is going to show the view that we're currently looking at. So if I filter it and say I only want to see Dunder Mifflin, when I export it, it's only going to export the information for Dunder Mifflin. All right. Moving on over, we have our Customize tab. Now, the Customize tab, it has the opportunity to customize. Now, this is because we are currently in a canned report. If we were in an already customized report, the option would then say, edit this report. So just a word of caution, you might see that difference. That's going to tell you that you are in an already customized report versus a canned report. The next little function down says create a copy. Now, create a copy is really useful if you're going to be having more than one person be able to generate and run reports within your firm. The reason being is because I could be walking past, and Brent, I adore you, we've worked together a lot, so I'm going to use you as an example. We'll say that Brent came by my desk and he saw a report that I had in BigTime. And he said, you know what, Bray, I love that report. I'd really like to use it, but I would need 2 additional columns. So what I could do is I could actually create a copy, keeping the integrity of my initial report intact. Go ahead and give Brent that copy and add the additional columns and share it with Brent. So that way he would be able to use that report. I would still have the integrity of my initial report intact, and he would have what he needs as well. Thank you, Brent, for being my guinea pig. I apologize. All right. The next little section down is going to be report permissions. Now, report permissions is a way that we can actually go ahead and share our reports within our user groups. So many of you have multiple different user right groups or security groups within BigTime. This is a great way to be able to say, I would like to go ahead and share this report with just my managers and not my everyone users. So by unselecting the everyone user, sharing it with my managers, updating the permissions, what I've just gone ahead and done is I have actually put this report into my employees, my report section. So they'll be able to access this report as long as they have the manager security group by clicking on reports and my reports. All right, last little button here I do like to show, because I myself definitely need glasses, is to go ahead and maximize the real estate on our screen. So this is just going to make your entire report full screen and give you a little bit just extra wiggle room to play with different columns. Another thing that I really like about BigTime's reporting functionality is that we do have the ability to go ahead and actually maximize our columns. So if we click in between our values here, we can go ahead and actually bring the size or the width of all our columns larger. So my projects have a little bit larger names. So by moving it over, I'm able to get the full view of my actual projects. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring our view down. That's going to go ahead and give me my navigation bar again. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to click on Customize. And from the drop down, we're going to go ahead and click on Customize again. Now, this is the back end of BigTime's reporting. This is absolutely my favorite functionality within BigTime because it is so powerful. So again, we'll start from the top and talk about what it is that we're actually seeing. So very similar to our previous view, we have our edit report settings. If we click on the hyperlink here, this is going to give us new settings and options in a drop-down features. So the first portion is client selection options. So let's go ahead and say that we want to run this timestamp report, but we only want it for Dunder Mifflin. We can actually go ahead and click on select a specific client. Now, by selecting this, what will happen is that when we open and run our report, it will then give us a drop down and ask us which client we actually want this report to run for. And it will only run for the client that I choose from the drop down. Now, project works very similarly, same functionality. It again will give you an option to be able to choose the project that you want to be able to report on, just from a drop-down list of all of the projects that you have open within BigTime. Because today we're going to be creating a system admin report, I'm actually going to go ahead and say no client or project selected. Okay. Moving on down, if we do decide to share this with our management group or maybe even our everyone group, we want to be able to limit what the individual should be able to see. So this second setting has a couple of options. The first option is everything should be seen with no security restrictions. The second is only data for projects that they are staffed on. And the third is only data for staffers that they manage. So staffed on is going to be at a project level. Staffers that they manage are going to be from the staff list. So those are going to be those departments. So depending on how you have, your environment set up, will determine what selection that you're going to use if you choose to share this report. Again, because we're going to create an admin report, we'll leave it at everything with no security restrictions. Now, date filtering, love this, but as you can see, date is required because this is a timesheet detail report, so it's not going to give me the ability, excuse me, it's not going to give me the ability to go ahead and actually remove the date functionality filter. And I'm just going to turn my volume all the way down. Okay, the next little portion down is additional settings or options, where we can actually filter results by a selected staffer. Same principle of using the drop-down option to select a specific client or project. We'll be able to say, hey, BigTime, I really only want to see timestamps for Brea Phillips. By selecting this little radio button, that will give us the option to be able to say, I only want this for one individual staff member. Now, this does actually make it for individuals. It doesn't make it for groups. So if you do need more than one individual's time to be showing, it is best to leave this blank and then just filter down what you do need. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click on Update Report down in our bottom right-hand corner, and that will go away. Now, again, very similar to our previous view for our edit report settings, the settings that we have set up in our report settings will show directly to the right of that section. All right. So moving down into the meat and potatoes of our actual report here, I like to go ahead and actually click into input hours. So let's talk about what we're looking at within the column. So first and foremost, I did click into the column and not into the header. Because that will give me the option to be able to expand the column itself. So the very first field here is going to show you exactly what is being returned from BigTime. Now, it is very tempting to be able to actually go up and down this pick list here and be able to choose the information that you want to be as to replace input hours on this column. However, I'm going to share with you there is a better way. We'll get there in just a brief moment. I like to go ahead and actually delete the columns that I know I'm not going to need, and then go ahead and add the columns that I know that I will need using our add column function, because, and again, you'll see in just a brief moment, it's a lot more user-friendly. Second little field here is going to be our column label heading. So right now it currently says input. I'm going to go ahead and make this input hours. So we can definitely change the column heading if you would like to by simply jumping in and changing the second field. Text alignment is pretty self-explanatory, but we do have left, center, and right capabilities. This will go ahead and determine how this will look. And if you have a specific view that you want, when we, there are paper people in every company. I'm the paper person over at BigTime, I know, shock. But some folks like it on paper, and if you are going to be printing it off for someone, setting your text alignment will definitely just help with the formatting principles. Okay. Fourth option here is going to be drill down link. Now, this is actually my second favorite functionality that's available in BigTime's reporting. What I like to go ahead and say is that we're actually able, by clicking on a drill down link, we turn our report return into a hyperlink. So by creating this hyperlink, we're able to go ahead and open, by clicking on the hyperlink itself, we can open the project to summary, we can open the project to activities, we can open timesheet to details. This is actually one of my absolute favorite hyperlink returns because it gives you so much functionality as a system administrator. So we're going to choose open timesheet to details. Now, when we create some maybe invoicing reports and things of that nature, we're able to actually get some calculations or some formulas out of BigTime. We'll talk about those again in just a brief moment. However, certain columns will need to be present in order to have that functionality work. And again, I'll show you how we'll be able to determine what would need to be present. But if the column is necessary to be able to get your margin calculation, for example, we don't necessarily want to show it on our report, so we do have the ability to hide the column. The two little gray boxes on the left-hand side are going to go ahead and move our columns over so we can restructure the format of our report. It is one placement at a time. So I always do tell people to be cautious, because if we jump like our no charge and then back, you can see that it does drastically shift our view. So just be cognizant when we're moving some of our columns around. Okay, I personally don't use categories in my BigTime environment, so I'm going to go ahead and use this to be the column that we're going to delete. So to delete a column, it's pretty simple. We're just going to click on the little red minus sign here. Now, as with everything else within BigTime, it's always going to ask us, are we sure? So we'll always have to confirm yes. All right. Now, adding columns is just as simple. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead. I always like to click into the last column. So that way I have a definitive breaker of the new columns that I added versus what was already in this report for me. So we'll go ahead and we'll click on the plus sign here. Now, this is the way to add new columns or to rearrange your columns on your report within BigTime. So what I like to point out here is that we have almost 200 different options that are available on this pick list to be able to return for a timesheet detail report. Lots and lots of different options, different headers available. But I would like to go ahead and point out my absolute #1 favorite part about BigTime's reporting functionality is this search available fields. Now, being real, we all practically live in BigTime, so we're pretty familiar with all of the titles and headers that come through. So when we started today's session, I said that I wanted to go ahead and create a time report. I wanted to see what the billable hours were. I wanted to see the billing rates, and I also wanted to see if these timestamps have yet been invoiced. So let's go ahead and we'll start adding some of our columns. So the search available fields, if I start typing in the word billable, you can see that this is going to bring our pick list down drastically. So again, because we are so familiar with BigTime, use this functionality because it will give you, it just really alleviates a lot of headaches. Okay. The second reason that I like to use this, this functionality to be able to add columns instead of by using the first drop down inside an existing column is because if I actually hover over the title, it's going to give me a description as to if I choose this, what's it actually going to return. So for fun things like billable charges, we actually get the formula that BigTime's going to calculate for us. And it also gives us fun little notes, like billing rates are locked in when time is attached to an invoice. So for today's purposes, we're going to go ahead and click billable hours. We're also going to go ahead and click on billing rates. And then I also said I wanted to see if these timestamps have yet been invoiced. So I'll go back up to my search available fields, delete my entry, come back in and start typing in the word invoiced. Okay. So again, you can see that my pick list is drastically smaller than my 200 plus options without filtering it down. And what I'm looking for is invoice status, yes or no. So I'll go ahead and make my selection. Now that I've gone through and I've added the different columns that I want, I'll go ahead and just click on the little X to go ahead and close out that column. Now it's time to go ahead and restructure this so the flow of my report is going to just make more sense. So I'm going to jump into my billable hours. I'm going to go ahead and push those behind input hours. Billing rate, I like to go ahead and push that before notes, and invoice status as well. So no charge, I would actually like to go ahead and have this after input hours. So oops, and guess what? I forgot something, but it's really simple to go ahead and add it. So project is how we're going to have this set up, but I also want to see the task that this is going to be associated to. So again, jump into my search available fields, start typing in the word task. It's under our time general. I use tasks instead of categories or labor codes within my environment, so that's why it's important for us to be able to view task. Okay, so I've got my report set up and it looks pretty good to me. Definitely has the information that I was looking for when we came in to set up our project or our report. So let's go ahead and talk about our options button. Now, options has three different functionalities available for us. The first is going to be customized grouping. So we'll jump into our grouping. Now, what this is going to do is it's, again, going to work very similarly to Excel to be able to sort our data before or as we run our report instead of having to run the report and then sort our data. So just a nice way to be able to keep everything organized and make it faster for your reporting. We'll come in and let's select project. Now, as I select an item for sorting or grouping, we get a new option, which is add group or subtotal. So what I will do is go ahead and actually select that option. And what this is going to do is very similarly to when I sorted it by my staff member by clicking on the staff member header. It's actually going to give me a green title at the top and then subtotals down at the bottom based off of project. We can add up to 3 different sorting functions. So the next thing I would like to go ahead and do is sort it by staff member. Again, we get the add group and subtotal option, but I do like to share that the more subtotals that we add, the more clustered your report's going to look. So definitely want to be cognizant of that because we don't want to make it look too cluttered and we still want to be able to make sense of it. Now, when we do add a group or subtotal, it's going to hide the columns that we're subtotaling. Right now, I'm going to be subtotaling at a project level. So I can go ahead and select don't hide any of the columns that I'm subtotaling, and that will give you the project column will still appear. And again, for those paper pushers in your firm like myself, if we are going to be printing this out, we do have the ability to put a page break between project values. So it will just give it a nice clean view for if we need to go ahead and print this out for somebody to be able to review. So since we did make a couple changes here, I'm going to go ahead and update the report. Going back to our options tab, we're going to jump on our second drop down, which is customized filtering. Now, we're actually able to filter a report before we get it into the report view itself. So all we need to do is go ahead and build out our filter. So we can say, hey, BigTime, I only want to see projects that contain the letter S, okay? You don't have to create these filters, but if you really want to drill down specific information on a regular basis, it does just help save some time by setting up the filters in advance. I'm actually not going to use this today because we're creating an admin report again. So I'll go ahead and I'll delete that. We can always add additional blank filters, okay? The next little portion down here at the bottom shows show filtering combinations. So whenever we have filters set onto our reports, we need to tell BigTime if we have more than one filter, how we would like that to apply to the criteria that it's going to return on our report. So I always use a banking analogy here. If you write a check to myself and my husband, then both of us need to be present in order to be able to cash that check. If you write a check to me or my husband, then either one of us has to be present in order to cash the check. So the filtering combinations work exactly the same way. If you have more than one filter, it automatically defaults to the AND functionality. So it would be that the criteria to return has to meet filters 1 and 2 and or 3, how many we build out. So if we want it to have the or statement, we're just going to jump in and say 1 or 2 or 3. Okay. Be cognizant or be aware of your spacing here. So you can also use different formulas with parentheses. So you can say, I want information that meets 1 and 2 or 3. So any different combination of filters here will be able to accommodate within BigTime. So again, just pre-filtering out the information that you would like BigTime to use as a criteria to return information on your report. We didn't make any changes here, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the cancel option. Going back up to our options portion, we're going to go ahead and click on report permissions. Now, we've seen this view before. This is the same exact view that we had on the previous screen when we opened up our report, and under the customize report permissions, same functionality. So what we can do is we can say, yes, I want to share this with my manager group. So again, by sharing this with the manager group, this is going to have this show up under the My Reports function. It's separate from the public reports. This is public reports goes to everyone. Using specific user groups only goes to the individuals that are within that security group. We'll go ahead and update permissions. All right, lastly, drum roll please, we are going to go ahead and actually create our report. So by clicking on Create Report, this is going to give us the option to provide a title for our report. So one thing I do like to go ahead and share is I always pull out Copy, and then I jump to the beginning of the report. I do this because I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start my report with either the initials of my firm or the name of my firm. This is going to help me delineate between which reports are canned reports and which reports are going to be customized. All right, the second little portion is asking us publish to. Now these little topics should look familiar. These were those bold headers underneath that all reports function in our report center that we saw at the beginning of today's presentation. So we have the public reports here. And again, just a reminder, this is only if you want to share this report with everyone. If you only want to share it with a specific user group, we're going to actually use the report permissions from the options button. Okay. This is actually going to be a staff report. So I'll go ahead and I'll hide this under our staff report. Now, description is actually a really fun little option that we have. So back when I was a BigTime customer, I used to have to run reports every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I use this description functionality to be able to say that this should be run every Wednesday. And we'll show timestamps with drill down link. Drill down's 2 words. All right. So we'll go ahead and we'll give it our description. And when we feel good with the information that's here, we'll go ahead and publish our report. And when we publish the report, it's going to automatically run the report with the filters and criteria that we specified when we built the report. However, again, whenever we build a report, it's going to default to the current month settings. If we want to go ahead and change that, we just jump in and we can go ahead and remove the date ranges to return everything, or we can change our date ranges. Same functionality is going to work across the top with our find, filter, and export. Because this is a customized report, we have a new little button. That's going to be our little garbage can. So if we run this report and go, oh, you know what, this really isn't what I wanted, we can scratch this, try again. We can actually just click on this little option here to delete this report and kind of keep our report list clean. Now, if I jump into this report and say, oh, you know what, don't really like the title, we can customize, edit this report, click on Create Report again, and say, I'm going to go ahead and call this BigTime instead of BT. So we can go ahead and republish the report. Now, the description that we had when we published our report will actually populate here under our little eye icon. So you can see I have run every Wednesday, and we'll show timestamps with the drill down link. Speaking of our drill down link, let's go ahead and take a look at the hyperlink that we created with our timestamps. So the hyperlink that we created when we did our input hours to open timesheets details is going to show itself here. I can simply go ahead and click on this hyperlink, which is going to go ahead and open my timestamp for me to be able to make adjustments. I really love this report, and I used it often when I was a customer, only because it saves a lot of time for being able to make corrections to timestamps. The one thing I will say is that in order to make corrections from this report screen, the time does have to be submitted. So if the time is not submitted, you'll have an identifier down here. But this is a great way for me to jump in and say, oh, you know what, that actually wasn't for Acme Corp, that was for Dunder Mifflin. So I can go ahead and make the change, grab my new task. I can even say if the customer should be charged for this time or not. Another great functionality that does populate when we're looking at this view of a timestamp is we have our input hours versus our billable hours. So back at my firm, we only charged half time for our travel. So if we were traveling from point A to point B and it took us 4 hours to do so, we would only charge the client for 2 hours of time. So what you can actually do in that situation is we can go ahead and jump into the billable hours and say we're only going to be charging the client for 10 hours. But in this situation, the full 20.5 hours that the employee worked is still going to be reflected on their timesheet. So this is only going to change the calculation that's pushed to your WIP. All right, we'll go ahead and we can save that. Okay, and let's go ahead and we're going to go back to our report center. So if we scroll down and go to our all reports functionality, under staff reports is where I actually house this report, so you can see it here. We've got our BigTime timesheet detail. All I need to do is simply click on the name of the report and it will automatically bring it up with the same settings that I had set with the parameters when I created the report. So that's pretty much everything for our reporting webinar. Definitely want to go ahead and open this up for questions. So if you have any questions, now's the time to go ahead and shoot those over using the questions function in the GoToWebinar control panel. All right. Well, doesn't look like I have any questions coming in. Did this make sense to everyone? In the questions area, you can definitely say yes. If you feel like you're a little bit lost, now is the opportunity to have some of that one-on-one time to be able to address it and really to be able to share with your peers any of the pain points that you're experiencing, or if you would like to know how to add a different function to reporting. All right. So one of the peers says, definitely makes sense, just a matter of doing it. Definitely understand, guys. I say jump into reporting. Like I said, the best practice that I can share with you is from your report center. Jump in, definitely get familiar with the canned reports that we offer you under each of the different tiles. Those are going to be under the other related reports. Because the timesheet detail is different than the timesheet summary. Timesheet summary is going to show you week ending. And so there's a lot of different functionality that's available. Kind of get you a little bit more familiar with some of the pick lists as well. Task list is definitely a fun one. And then don't forget, if you need to have a project or a staff-based report based off of your staff list, you will have to click on your magnifying glass and create your report to be able to get to that project list or staff list umbrella. All right. Well, I would like to thank each and every one of you for attending our webinar today. Again, my name is Brea, and I'm the software implementation consultant within the success team over here at BigTime. Most of you should have my information. So if you do come up against any hard or roadblocks in your reporting way, definitely feel free to use me as a resource, as well as our support team, which is going to be support@bigtime.net.